Hey everyone. Thanks for joining us for the next session of our Spotlight on GitHub Copilot series, GitHub Copilot for Azure. My name's Anna. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping links and checking for questions for our presenter to answer live. Our session is recorded. It will be available to view on demand within 24 to 48 hours on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our presenter for today. Gwen, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi everyone, Anna, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. It's been a minute since I've done a Reactor stream, so it's nice to be back to my roots. How's everyone doing? We're going to be talking about Azure and GitHub Copilot. There's this new extension that's pretty neat. We're going to be taking a look at it. But before I dive in, let me know what's your experience with GitHub Copilot, because I have a couple of slides, and depending on what's the chat's experience, I'll probably do more or less of them. Just because I don't want to spend time on information that a lot of you know, right? Yeah, cool. So let's start talking about Copilot. Oh my goodness, there's so many Copilots now, but GitHub Copilot specifically. We have seen a lot of updates this year with it. And it's been around for over 2 years, almost closer to 3 now, which is insane. I feel like this whole Gen AI thing feels kind of like a new, but it's been a couple of years now, right? It's but it's so fast. I feel like every week it's new things possible to keep up to date with. But we kick off today talking about the Copilot effect, right? I don't even know how many copilots exist now, but there's a bunch. But our goal with every kind of copilot that we make is really to help you all sort of maximize developer happiness, increase developer productivity, and accelerate software development. And I give you my word, if that means anything to you, that we really do care about these things. It's not just stuff that we put on these cool looking slides. We really do aim, and these are our goals to improve, to work towards, right? Hold on, my mouse is on the wrong side. Okay, here we go. So you're most likely familiar with GitHub Copilot, the OG feature, which is that ghost text where you're typing and it'll complete for you, right? I find that most people are not aware of GitHub Copilot Chat, which is similar to it's like a chat-like experience inside of Copilot, inside of where you use it. And this little video that we have playing, it's inside of VS Code. You can use it in other places like Visual Studio, It's similar to like a ChatGPT experience or a Microsoft Copilot experience that you would use in something like Edge. And you can just have a back and forth conversation. Right? But we have this built into Copilot, in this case, VS Code. And the examples I'm going to show you will also be VS Code. I like this a lot. I like things that I'm very particular with devices and programs that I use. I like single purpose. I still listen to music on an iPod. I don't like to stream music on my phone. When I want to read, I have a specific I have all my stuff near me. I have a very specific e-reader that I bring around me just to read. My phone is just for messaging. What a phone is meant to be. So I'm very, very particular. So I like things that don't force me to context switch so much. It's I'm in VS Code. I'm working on my project, and that's it, right? So you might be familiar, might not be familiar with Copilot Chat, but we're going to take a look at that today too, because that's where we're going to use this Azure extension. So Copilot versus Copilot Chat. Copilot, direct code writing, seamless IDE integration, solo development. And on the right, we have Copilot Chat, which is more in-depth assistance, learning and teaching, and collaborative scenarios. Whenever there is a new tool, I think the best approach is to try to leverage and understand where it fits in your workflow, because you most likely have been doing work for, who knows, years, decades. You've got your thing established. You know what works for you, what doesn't. And trying to find a new tool and making it sort of replace something or replace a couple of things, I don't think is a great idea. But finding how these things have their benefits in whatever place and seeing how they fit in your toolkit, I think is awesome. I think one of the failures of or not failures, but one of the things I don't like about this Gen AI space is that we try to kind of label tools as like, this is all you need, like this will replace everything. And no. Like I think one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is now when there's an error in the code, they just go straight to like what's wrong to like Copilot or to whatever tool they're using instead of using existing tools. Like you have a debugger, like you can print statements, you can look at the output in the terminal. Like we're sort of losing sight of these tools that have existed for decades and have like a foundation, have been cemented into like our workflows. So this is why I like this slide here. It tells us what to do with one, what to do with the other, and then you're going to use them for the right purposes, right? Okay. Someone said been using GitHub Copilot since it was in beta. Wow. So that's close to like 3 years, right? Right? It's got to be up there, right? So anyway, today we're going to be taking a look at the Azure extension, GitHub Copilot. You can scan this, or you can check out that link to kind of get access to it. It is something that you have to install, right? So it's not baked into Copilot. It's something that we've given sort of you go and install it, right? I feel like if it was baked into Copilot, people would probably be upset. So right at the moment, it's something that you install separately. So I'll leave this up for a couple of seconds. If not, you can just watch the recording if you missed this. Or we can copy that link and drop it into the chat as well, right? Awesome. Or you could probably just search it. You'll find it, right? Now, before we dive into actually using it, I like this sort of 4 pillars, or they're called cornerstones of prompting. The other day, I saw someone using, what was it? I think it was Claude. I like Claude AI. And their prompt was barely a sentence. It was like 3 words. And I'm like, come on. It's like I think using Gen AI and using these tools are such an opportunity for us to develop our communication skills, our soft skills with next to instant feedback. Because at the end of the day, when we're working in tech or working in any field, and specifically in tech, because that's what this focuses on, right? Humans working with humans, right? We're on teams. We have people maybe who report to us or people to report to, whatever. And the way humans work together is through communication. And I find these tools to be awesome ways to improve your communication, to improve your ability to explain the issues that you have, instead of removing that or making that a shortcut that these tools can do for you. And what's ironic is that these tools don't work very well when you try to do that. So then I see people get frustrated. It's like, it's not getting the answer. Well, you're also not providing enough information, right? So intent, context, clarity, and specificity, which I think is very important here. Intent, give directions. If you go into leveraging these tools with a vague idea of what you want, you're going to get a vague answer, right? Context, if you can provide examples of like, oh, I'm trying to do this. How can I do this in this context, right? Clarity, when someone can only explain something with highly technical terms, and then people tell them like, oh, well, you really don't know what you're talking about because you can't explain it in like normal, regular language. Well, that's kind of the same in the context of AI. It's like you need to be able to explain it just, normal words that the majority of people would know about, regardless of their, specialization or anything like that, right? And specificity, precision, and detail. Precise information, detailed information, because this also shows that you know what problem you're encountering and your skill set, right? AI is here to assist you, or this Gen AI is here to assist you with your existing skill set. But if you don't have an existing skill set, then of course, it's not going to be able to help, right? So let's keep that in mind, okay? When it comes specifically to the Azure extension, there are at the moment 5 areas where I feel like it's very beneficial to tap into. Learn, so getting answers about specific services. So let's say like you're planning a migration and you want to figure out which services to use. Well, it's great for using that. Deploying, it can kind of pull up templates for you. It can pull up steps, instructions for you to deploy things to Azure. Troubleshooting, you can ask about specific errors that you've encountered, or kind of ask about, any kind of things that have happened with your application. in, I don't know, 7 days, 30 days, whatever it is, right? Resources, you can ask, hey, how many resource groups do I have? Or hey, how many these types of resource, how many of like Azure functions do I have deployed, or things like that, right? So better understanding your environment and costs. How much has this cost me for the past 30 days? Or potentially like, oh, how could I save on this specific type of resource? How can I save money on that? I think, how can I, right here it says, how can I reduce costs in my subscription? So this is kind of what we're going to walk through today, and yeah, kind of get to know better examples of when to leverage this. All right. Now, before, well, I guess I could pull up, limitations. This is good. Training data impacts suggestions. So if you have, for example, a deployment with one of like the newer Azure services, because there are less examples, like less documentation, there's examples for it to leverage to understand what it is that you're trying to get at. That's going to have an impact, right? It's kind of similar to how GitHub Copilot, when it comes to languages like JavaScript, Python, TypeScript, it does very well versus something like, I don't know, COBOL. Like there's only like 10 COBOL programmers in the world now. I'm just kidding. They're in a breed going extinct. But he has a very niche program, right? And so it's like there's not a lot of examples out there to leverage. So you keep that in mind. Obviously, GitHub Copilot is not a compiler. It just provides suggestions, right? It's up to you to verify that that works. And that's where your skill set will come into play. And, it's always going to be important. Can't read your mind. We just went through kind of like those cornerstones are very important. Every Copilot needs a captain. And there's this, is this quote here, if you don't know where you are going, you'll end up someplace else. Interesting. I don't know how I feel about that quote, but anyway, it's on the slide. All right, so I'm going to show you guys all this later, and I'm going to pull up. Can we? Oh wait, let me share my screen again. I think it went away. Share screen. No, entire screen. That's the key here. Okay, can we just pop that back up on the stream, please? And when I work with this extension, I like to work within, don't worry, I'm going to zoom this in a little bit. I like to work within the project that I want to deploy. You don't necessarily have to, because it's based off your Azure environment that you can query throughout any project that you have open. But for me, in my brain, it makes more sense. Like if in my IDE or my text editor, I have open the project that I have deployed to Azure that I want to work in, it makes sense to kind of have that open, right? So let's start off with, which one do I want to do first? Let's do this one. This is a Python project that I have not deployed, but that I want to deploy. So what we can do here is, do I have to reopen this? I don't think I have to. Reopen this. Do I have it installed here? Okay, I think I have to reopen this in a container. 1 second. Let's run Docker. How's everyone doing? What's your tech stack? Usually Python, and lately it's been Azure App Service. I'm a big fan of PaaS and IaaS. So yeah, Python. Oh my goodness, I have to restart the WSL integration. Okay. And front end, I like very, very, very minimum JavaScript. I'm primarily working backend kind of stuff. All right, let me open this up here. Reopen in container. But I have more experience with .NET, like full stack .NET, like for in front end stuff, primarily like Blazor and the likes, which is awesome. I'm a big fan of Blazor. Okay, cool. But lately I've been trying to get more into Python and potentially Rust. Rust, because there is this thing called micro VMs, which I am just fascinated. I'm primarily interested in infrastructure. I have an operations background, and infrastructure to me, I think, is just very cool. And there's this thing called micro VMs, and right now there's this thing called Hyperlight, which is a micro VM manager, primarily running with examples in C and Rust. So that's why I kind of want to learn more Rust to be able to build my own type of things with that. Okay. Anyway, we are in here. That's zoomed in. I'll do one more. I think that's good, right? Yeah, perfect. Okay. So this is that GitHub chat, Copilot chat experience or window or thing that I was talking about earlier, right? Ghost text is, as you're typing, it will generate like this gray, I don't know, we'll just say like print. Do I have it enabled? Yeah, see, so that this text, this is called ghost text, right? And that's like kind of like the OG feature of GitHub Copilot. And then chat is like this experience on the left side or right side or whatever you have it. And it's similar to like ChatGPT, right? Now, when we work with the Azure extension, we do have to do @ and then you see we have at Azure, at GitHub, at Terminal, at VS Code, at Workspace. We have like a bunch of things here. And whenever you have @ and this is not specific to Copilot, I think it's more so just across many, many Gen AI tools, is that whenever you @ something, you're invoking an agent. And in this case, we have Azure here. And I'm just going to say, hello, are you there? Just to see if it's connected. And agents are sort of like really, really specific AIs that have really defined and detailed instructions on what they need to do. So for example, we have at Azure, the Azure agent, its goal is to understand things about Azure. We have also at Workspace here, its goal is to know everything about your workspace out of VS Code. At Terminal, it should be able to understand what's going on in your terminal, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, we're just going to focus on the Azure one today. Everything else is out of scope. But if you're interested in that, let me know, and maybe I'll do another session on it. Okay, cool. So we are here in the Azure agent, right? This is an API that it's like, I'll show you exactly actually what it does. Let me pull up another tab. I would run it locally, but I don't know how good this computer is if I suddenly start running stuff. Okay, so I have this very simple, go to define the cloud.guide, and then I search for, I don't know, container. It's just kind of like a dictionary type thing, right? And I select one of these and it shows me like the definition. But this is deployed with Azure Functions.NET backend, and the front end is a Blazor WebAssembly app, right? I'm a big fan of learning new technologies through rebuilding them with projects that I've already built, right? So this is a fast API implementation that I'm going to deploy in Azure App Service, and the front end will probably just be some very simple, like it's probably maybe next, I don't know, we'll see, Vue, something, I don't know. I'm not saying that those technologies are simple, just saying like it's going to be very minimal. It's like, because I know you can make complete like, full stack applications with those frameworks, but for me, it's just going to be front end, right? So I'm a big fan of learning new technologies, so in this case, Python and App Service, through projects that I've implemented and that I know on other services. So this is kind of an implementation of that same project, which uses Cosmos DB, Azure Functions, and Blazor. But in this case, we're using Cosmos DB with the Python SDK, Fast API, Azure App Service, right? My ultimate goal is to deploy an SLM, maybe like 5.3, as a sidecar. So I'll deploy this in a container on App Service. And as a sidecar, which is just an architecture pattern, it's not specific to Azure App Service, deploy an SLM that it can make calls to sort of locally. It's not really local because it's deployed, but it's local to like the parent container. And then integrate some kind of Gen AI. So maybe we can generate like project ideas. So like if you search up container, and then it'll use the context and other information that I can provide it, and come up with like an idea for you to get hands-on, like a project idea for you to get hands-on with containers, or if you look up, I don't know, serverless, stuff like that. So that's my goal. Well, one step at a time. Okay. So what I can do here, let's hit that first pillar, which was learn, right? So I can ask at Azure, actually, let's say list all services. Is that big enough? We'll do, I think that's big enough, right? Oh, we might need to do one more. Yeah, because it's like, I think that's probably good enough. Okay, list all, it's kind of hard for me to see because it's like taking up so much of the screen, but it's all right. List all services that can be used to deploy containers to Azure. And you see here as context, it has the main.py, but if I close this, it should not use that. So as I shift to a different file, it's using that as context, right? But I'm going to just close that too, because right now I'm kind of just asking like a general question. All right, cool. And you see we have no context here, right? So think of it as, let's say you're a cloud engineer, cloud architect, someone who does stuff in the cloud. Your first step, ideally, with working with a project or like putting something together is kind of understanding what your options are. I think in Azure, we have something like, I don't know, 5 or 6 different services that you could use. See, now I'm too zoomed in. All right, so let's go smaller there. We have Azure Kubernetes, Azure Container Instances, and Azure Container Apps. But I don't think that's all of them. Is that all of them? Because I know on app service, we can deploy a container as well. But maybe it's just thinking for like microservices. So let's see what we can get here. Oh, here we go. Here's a more complete list. AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service. We have ACI, Azure Container Instances, Azure Container Apps, Azure App Service, and then Azure Red Hat OpenShift. To be honest, I didn't even know that was a thing. So there we go. 5 different services, right? So again, we're in the kind of like planning phase, trying to figure out what we want to use. And this is why it's important for you to understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish, right? Because if you sit down and you're like, I need to deploy a container, and that's all you know, well, then you might end up using something like Azure Kubernetes Service when all you need is a place to deploy a single container. So what I like to do next is kind of further dive into just the details of the project, right? And then for this, it might be helpful to open up the actual file. If I could, once again, gain some space here. We have it on here. No. Okay, we go folders, and then we'll open up our main.py here. Okay, so now the extension will have the context of the main.py, which has the API itself, so that should be good enough here. Oh, I want to deploy this API to a container. What other information is important for Azure to know about this? It's, I might want, because I was saying I want a sidecar later. So keep that in mind. Which service should I consider and why? Right. Cool. So we're still in like the investigating phase, right? It's saying here, based on your requirements of deploying a fast template with a potential sidecar containers in the future, it's saying AKS. Okay, I understand why it's saying AKS. Did I say multiple? Okay, hold on. Want a single sidecar later. So keep that in mind. Which service should I consider and why? Let's see if I can get a different answer here. It's still saying AKS, which I think, let me think about this. I guess it could make more sense to use something like AKS if you potentially want to add additional services. But because my project is very like limited in scope, I think something like Azure App Service would make more sense, or something like not container instance, but container apps would be good too. So let me provide that information as well. So let me say, I don't think I would need a full microservice architecture. Let's say that. So let's see what kind of information it gives to that. So you see the kind of, I guess, experience that I'm having here with this extension is a back and forth and getting feedback on kind of my thoughts, and additionally kind of verifying the details that I have in my project, and I like thinking out loud, which I love a lot. And this is something that you would do a lot in like doing your own planning. You're planning the work. You're doing like a whiteboarding meeting with your team. You have a lot of this back and forth, except now you don't need to sort of set up a meeting with someone or wait for someone to be available. You can have some back and forth and feedback with like the Azure extension in this case here, and then later be that much more prepared for when you do meet with the rest of your team, right? So now it says, given that you may not need a full microservice architecture, but still want the flexibility to add sidecars in the future, Azure Container Apps could be a viable option. Here's why. And then it tells us a couple of other options here as well too. Now, the last thing I want to ask, so you kind of get an idea of how you can learn a little bit more about services. The last thing I want to ask is, are there any other Azure services that would fit my needs and I could consider. Another thing is I would ideally, okay, actually, let's just send that for now. And let's see what it tells us here. And it also tells us Azure App Service here. So it looks like Azure Container Apps, Azure App Service, kind of the services that I thought originally would be a good fit for here is what it's telling me. So I kind of like that too. Now, learn was one of the other pillars. Another thing it was telling us, I forgot what was I should know this. Let's go back here. Deploy. I don't want to deploy yet though. Actually, let me think about this. So this project is not ready to be deployed. I know that much. But we can kind of look into the examples that it has. So what I'm going to do is close this, and then I'm going to start a new chat. I'm going to start a new chat. Also, you can have multiple chats, and it's not like when you add a chat, it disappears. If you just go into the command palette, and then I think you type in like switch, open chat, switch chat. No. Oh, wait, no, hold on. This little icon here says show chats, and you can switch between the chats that you have, right? So for example, if I go to over here, I have the other chat. Oh, what was the other one I was doing today? Oh, today here. Here is that chat. And then if I go to another one, ask something else, I can switch back and forth, right? Actually, hold on. Before we move on, let me say, if I wanted to deploy to Azure App Service, how could I do that? I want to deploy as a container. And then I forgot, well, I didn't forget, I closed the file. Open main.py once again. And let's see what it gives us here. Rust is on my bucket list as well because a lot of Python packages and tools are now being written in Rust. Yeah, doesn't the kernel support Rust now? And then I think Azure is having a pretty big move on Rust too, which I think is cool. Okay, so it's telling us to deploy your fast API application to app service, prereqs. It tells us to create a Docker file, which obviously, if we're going to deploy as a container, we're going to need some kind of container specification. This is what I like. It's giving us here some CLI. I'm a massive fan of CLI commands, very big fan. The other day, I was deploying a site-to-site VPN, right? So one site-to-site VPN is essentially you have like an environment somewhere, usually on-prem, and then you have your other environment in the cloud, and you want them to be able to communicate securely. Like there's a tunnel between them, which is like the VPN, and you want to be able to access your Azure services and then your on-prem services sort of back and forth, but through like a secure connection. And then that's what the site-to-site VPN is, right? And I needed a gateway in my Azure environment, right? But I wanted it to be the cheapest SKU because this was just like a small proof of concept thing. It wasn't going to be something in production. But then I realized that you can't select the cheapest SKU in the portal, which I don't necessarily think is a big deal because the majority of people are probably going to be deploying on a higher SKU anyway. And you would only do it from the CLI. So that's how I tell people, like, learn your CLI commands. Okay, so I like that it gives us here CLI commands here. Okay, so it gives us here, log into ACR, push the Docker image. It tells us here to create an Azure App Service plan as well. Create a web app. Yeah, this all seems pretty correct. So it gives us what we need there as well. I wonder, and I have not tried this, so if this fails, don't hold it against me. Can you show me how to deploy this to Terraform? Oh, no, not Terraform. Not this. Deploy this with Terraform. That's what I'm trying to say. And let's add please. Maybe that'll help. All right. we got to be polite. You never know what's going to happen. Okay, here's a step-by-step guide to deploying your fast application to Azure App Service using Terraform as a container. Oh, sick. So it looks like it actually will give you this. Let's see. Now, I'm pretty new to Terraform, primarily have R and bicep experience. So obviously, with every kind of suggestion that these tools give you, you got to look through them. But as a starting point, this looks awesome. And the fact that this is possible, I think is great, right? Terraform being sort of a universal tool, you're working on AWS, you can use Terraform. Working on Azure, GCP, or whatever other cloud. So this is cool. Okay, cool. So from the learning and deploying perspective, you see, oh, they also have templates, Helen. Do you have any templates? I know there's templates. I was looking at that. Here. It says here, find and deploy a sample app quickly using an AZD template. Okay. I found a template that matches your fast API application with custom speed integration requirements. Containerized React web app with Python API and MongoDB. Interesting. Okay. Curl. All right. So you have to use the Azure Developer CLI, which many of you might have already. And then you can use this template to get started, which I think is pretty awesome. So anyway, you get a feel. I want to kind of move into the other pillars that we have, but you get a feel for what we have for the sort of learn and deploy pillars, right? Now, what's our other one here? Troubleshoot. Okay, troubleshoot. So I'm going to close this project actually. And what we're going to do is we're going to move into another project that I have. Again, not necessary, but I like working in the context of the project that I'm asking questions about. Okay. So now we're going to move into that project that I actually have deployed, which is the .NET version. I'm just going to open this here. This is already deployed. And the other day I was migrating. So this was originally deployed on a Azure Functions consumption plan. And then I migrated it to the Flex consumption plan, which in my opinion is a better fit for it. But then I had a bunch of errors. So I'm pretty sure we can kind of look through those errors and better understand them. Honestly, in the moment, it was kind of a chaotic moment to figure out what was going on. I did not use the Azure extension. But now let's see what kind of information we could get off the Azure extension. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I actually don't know. Let's make this a little larger. I actually don't know what it's called. So let's say list all resource groups in my tenant only by names. Okay, there's a lot going on. Hold on, let me make some space here. And I don't think we need all these files open. Let's see if I can get some more space here. There we go. Cool. So now we're going to minimize. It's a little smaller here. So we have some resource groups here in your tenant. I have the default resource group, the log. I know that one. Azure Project Generator. We have the cloud. No, it's not in here. I think it's like, no, it's so if you press the up arrow, it has a history. List all resource groups in my tenant only by names and if they contain, I know it has dictionary in it. Dictionary in the name. I just don't know exactly what the resource group is called. I just know it has a dictionary. Okay, let's see. Okay, here it is. So this is the name of my resource group, which is important. I know people tend to not like resource groups in Azure, but when it comes to querying and kind of associating projects or maybe like environments, so you might have like versions, like you have a development version of a project in one resource group. You could have like RG dash the project name dash dev, and then you can have prod. I like that level of isolation and sort of like you can distinguish, like it's like a limit, right? Or boundary, not limit, boundary. Right? Okay, so I have this resource group here. And I know inside here, list all the Azure functions I have in, and then we'll just put that resource group name. Because we're going to drill into the errors of this function that I had, but I don't remember the names. I'm sorry. I should have looked into this. But this is a great way for us to kind of look at the functionality of this. It says here, there are no Azure functions found in the resource group. What? Wait, do that again. I'm pretty sure all the Azure, do I have, let me see. List all the, okay, you know what? Let's do it this way. List all the resources in, there you go. How about that? because I know Azure Functions, I think the service name is Azure Functions app. So maybe that's what's going on here. So I have a dashboard. I have an app service plan, digital web app. I have a Cosmos DB account. I have 2 app service plans. Dashboard, actually Cloud Dictionary, cron, get definition of the day. Okay, I have some query rules. Truncated field list, please refer to the JSON file using the query. It's not showing me unless it's associated app service plan. Are those all the resources? Let's see. I'm pretty sure I have the functions in there. No, I'm not pretty sure. I'm 100% sure. Well, I could be wrong. App service plan, smart. There's a truncated list. I guess there's, okay. Okay, let's see. Do I have any Azure function apps deployed to my subscriptions? Let's do this. Subscriptions. I got a new keyboard and I'm still kind of getting good at it, so I apologize for the typing errors. But let's see if we can get it to list correctly the functions here. It did great with listing us the resource groups. So not sure what's going on here. Okay, so now it's listing the functions, and I think if it was a capitalization error, I need to give that feedback to the team because that's kind of like, I feel like that's not acceptable. Anyway, so we have the Azure Resume Visitor Counter, Azure Project Generator. Here we go. We have the Cloud Dictionary. We have the Define the Cloud API. Okay, so it's here. Perfect. Okay, so I do have functions. See, I knew it. And they're inside that resource group. Okay, cool. This is great. This is good feedback for me. So I know that one of these had errors. Well, let's see. Can you show me any errors that, we'll just copy these names. So I don't want to focus on all these functions. I just want to focus on these 2. Can you show me any errors that Cloud Dictionary and had in the last 30 days? 30 days? 14 days maybe? We'll start with 30, see what it can do for us. Let me see here. All right, we got about 20 minutes left. Sweet. We'll get through it. I promise we'll get through it. So for now, we're just going to go check through errors and see what it can do for us. And what's going on? Is it empty? Is this an empty response, or is this because I am messing with the Zoom a lot? I think we can retry that. Let's see. Let's give it a minute or a second. Oh, come on. All right, let's try it once more. We'll do up arrow, send it. Oh, I didn't know I had the option to pick models here. Cool. I mean, I knew that that's a thing and it was announced, but I didn't know that I specifically had it in here. Has anyone messed around with like O1 Mini or O1 Preview with Copilot? I'm interested. Or does anyone have access to like Claude and Gemini? I think that's actually pretty sick. Okay. So I encountered issues while retrieving logs. Here are some steps you can do. You can check permissions. Ensure your account has reader. No, I should have. Do I need to? Let's try it once more. Do I need to reauthenticate or log in with the extension? Because sometimes when there's an update, you do have to re-sign in or refresh that like login token or whatever it is. So let's see. I'll try it once more. And if it encounters an error, I'll just go off screen for a little bit, log in again, and okay, hold on. Let's try. Can show me all errors that my Azure functions have encountered in the last 7 days. How about that? If not, maybe we'll work through the other examples and then come back to this one. I did do some of this early, not earlier today, a couple days ago, and it was working. So, all right, let's open a new chat, okay, and we'll say, I'm trying to get it to query. Show me the total cost of my subscriptions from last month. Probably need to zoom in once more there. Okay, so this probably will. All right, here we go. Which subscription? The Visual Studio one. Studio Enterprise subscription, please. Okay, because I have various subscriptions. I guess it needs to query, which would make sense because when you're querying, you're trying to get information, it asks per subscription. So it makes sense that it would have that sort of same experience in this context. So let's see. It says asking cost management. Your total is $70.99. It's kind of high. But then last month, I was playing around a lot with networking stuff. And networking stuff can get really expensive. I try to keep everything on free tiers, but all right, let me try to get more space. But hey, there's only so much I can do. You got to get hands-on, right? You got to get hands-on. Okay, so I like this. It gives us a breakdown. So my VPN gateway was $23. And I like that it gives you the percentage. The VNet was $16. The storage was $14. And then our cheapest stuff was, cognitive services, interestingly enough. Log analytics, our CDN, DNS, Azure Monitor, pretty cheap. Virtual machine, Azure App Service, storage. Okay, fine, perfect. Now what I can ask is, okay, so my top resource here is the VPN gateway. So do you have any recommendations on how I can save money with, I'm just going to copy this, VPN gateway, with my VPN gateway resource? Let's see. I'm looking for it to kind of show me some documentation, ideally, right? Okay, here are some recommendations to save money with your VPN gateway resource. Delete idle VNet gateways if your virtual network gateway has been idle for, okay. Switch to consumption-based billing. I don't really know when it's best to use consumption-based billing for the gateway context. Use Azure Advisor recommendations. All right, that seems a little generic. Use Azure Hybrid benefit. Use your existing on-premise license to reduce the cost of running resources in Azure. Leverage Azure Spot instances. Okay, cool. Okay, I think that's pretty decent advice. VNet, storage, virtual machines. Do I have any virtual machines that are running? That's a good question to ask. Are any of my virtual machines running? I feel like that's probably a way to save some money, even though it's not a significant amount. But again, I'm just trying to test its querying ability or showcase its querying ability. Can you wait, where'd it go? Oh, it ran again by it. Oh no, I think I clicked a little question. You get these questions down here. Let me zoom in here, which are usually pretty useful, but you can also encounter kind of like a rabbit hole, because you can just click and then click and click. Like, for example, how can I set up alerts for virtual machines? Can I receive notification? Like, if I like, this seems interesting. What are the best practices for monitoring? If I click on that, it's got all these references that it's using, and then it generates the answer, and then it's always going to generate you more questions that you can keep kind of like poking at, or like clicking at, which I like, because it almost sort of incentivizes you or like slightly nudges you to dive deeper into a topic, which when we think about Gen AI and like this promise of like being more efficient and saving time, you have the question of like, what do we do with this time that we're saving? Well, it's like, if you have more time, then why not dive a little deeper? Why not learn a little bit more? Why not understand a little bit better, which I like, but then you also have to balance with like, I could just endlessly click these questions and suggestions, right? Okay. So anyway, where was I? Okay, back here. Let's go this way. So I feel like, we should be able to, can you show me log data from my, let's go back up to this here, this table. Where's this table? From my, let's just copy this from my Azure App Service resources. Okay, because that's what we were trying to get at from the other one, to get like logging information, right? Please provide me with the name of your Azure App Service resource. Can you list them, please? Because I don't remember the names. I almost wanted to like know what I like want, right? It's like, I feel like you should be able to have an intuition of like, okay, show me the log data from Azure App Service. So instead of asking me which one, just go and query all of them, kind of thing. But I guess it just also forces you to be intentional. It looks like I was unable to gather specific Azure App Service resource from your project files directly. Please provide the following name so I can query. So you need the name of the Azure App Service resource, name of the resource group belongs. Okay. Show me the resources in the RG-Cloud Dictionary resource group. Okay. And then from here, I want to be able to get the last thing. Wait, let me check here. We looked at costs. We looked at what were resources. So troubleshooting resources we're kind of going through now. It says that we can do how many Azure OpenAI deployments do I have? So stuff like, I guess the wording is important here. Okay. So let's take a look. We have app service plans. Okay, list me the Azure function apps in that resource group. Oh no, in my Visual Studio Enterprise. Oh my goodness, Enterprise subscription. There we go. I really hope I don't have to like re-authenticate. Mainly because it would take some time, but we could do it. Let's see. Here are Azure. Okay, so it lists the functions correctly. Awesome. And then I'm going to copy function app. Okay. Show me errors that the function app, we're pasting in the name, has had in the last seven days. All right, let's try this. Let's see if this works. Oh, I could probably zoom in more. There we go. It appears that there was an issue querying the logs for Cloud Verify. The resource name and groups are correct. They are. Ensure that you have the necessary. I do have the necessary. Let's try it once more. I gotta say, I really think this is an authentication thing because this was working for me before. But of course, the demo gods. What's the other thing? It says here we can also do what resource type do Azure Container Apps have? Oh, I guess like everything that gets deployed with an Azure Container. Is that what it's asking? Oh my goodness, it finally worked. Look at that. Okay. Here are some of the errors encountered by Cloud Dictionary function. Okay, this stuff here is really taking up some space. Let's go minus. So it looks like we had a type of Microsoft that Azure Web JavaScript Workers RPC exception. And okay, it looks like Cosmos DB. And then we get to the actual output, which I like here, Cosmos exception. And it gives us response status code does not indicate success, not found 404. Okay. And we can click on it for detailed trace. Okay. Timestamp. So it's listing us a bunch. Let me zoom out a little bit more. Errors, timestamp. Okay. I have another one. These all seem to be the same. Another one. Okay, great. I can query logs in the Azure portal. Awesome. Let's see if I can. I want to get more information. How about we say, what do these errors mean, and how could I potentially fix them? All right. Let's see what information it can give us here. The errors you posted indicate Cosmos exception. 4/4 means that the specified item or resource in Azure Cosmos V is not being found. Okay, incorrect item or partition key. Missing collections or database. Solutions, verify. Okay, cool. I like this. I think this is pretty helpful. This is pretty neat here. How much time do I have? Okay. The last thing I want to do is see if it can give me. No. So what worked here? It's me. Show me all errors that my Azure gateway had in the last 30 days. I want to see what, I don't know if I've had any errors, but we'll see. But I want to see what it could potentially give us from that. Because it's like a different type of resource where it's like, function is like essentially a compute resource. It's a gateway. It's a networking type thing. Okay, list me all resources of type gateway in my subscription. So I don't know what the name is. I think it's like GPS HQ something gateway. There are no of type gateway. Wait, hold on. I had it up here. VPN gateway. Okay, now here we go. List all I have deployed. Will that work? I'm noticing that you have to be very specific in particular. But another good thing is like this gets better with time. This extension is relatively new. So it will get better at like sort of understanding what you're trying to say. You don't have any VPN gate resources deployed in your subscriptions, but I do. Okay, how about list me all deployed resources in my Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. Oh my goodness, there. Let's see if we can list absolutely everything. It might be a lot. I have like a couple things deployed to this Azure portal dashboard, app service plan. Oh, and it's doing it by alphabetical order, which I think is pretty interesting. This might be long. Oh wait, no, it's not that long. It finished. Truncated network connection. Okay, cool. Metric alert, action group. Okay, so let me see this network connection. Okay, here it is. How about we do this? Show me any errors that it had in the last 7 days. How about that? Let's see what this does. I just pasted all the information it gave me. Let's see if it knows what to parse out of it and query. Let's try this. Like, okay, it looks like it was probably too much. Name error that the resource Argentino in the resource group had in the last 7 days. All right, it's the last thing I'll try before I wrap up, and we can take questions and stuff like that. Or does anyone want me to try a particular prompt before we wrap this up? Also, hold on. There's a slash. We can do /cost. Let's see. What if we do /cost? Let's see what /cost does. Okay, Copilot for integrated with code. Here's your documentation. Okay, so if I do /cost and then I paste this resource, will it tell me? How much does my let's say Visual Studio Enterprise subscription cost? Boom. What else do we have? Slash commands. I was talking about this a little bit earlier, where it's so like specific actions. So like where agents are kind of like all-encompassing little sub AIs. Slash commands are more so like really specific tasks. So change tenant, cost, diagnose, I guess this is explain, EXP. Or no, online experiment, I guess it's not explain. So it's kind of like a meta prompt in a way, where, for example, if you select something and you're like, instead of saying like, what does this cost, you just use /cost. It can infer that it wants to understand you are asking about the cost. So you see that upward, I typed out the cost, like the prompt, like, hey, how much did this cost? It had information with that / command there. What else could we have here? What if we do diagnose? We have 3 minutes. Diagnose Cosmos DB exception. Let's see what it does with that. We're looking, any prompts? No. Okay, based on the dictionary function file you provided, here is how you can handle Cosmos DB exceptions in your Azure functions to ensure. Okay, neat. I like this too. Very helpful. Cool. All right. We are at time right now. So I'm gonna scroll through and see if I have any questions. Look at the screen here. Is there any programmatic access? I don't think you have programmatic access. Like I'm assuming you're asking like an API access to something like this. It's like baked into the ID or the text editor that you're leveraging. What else do we have here? All right, I think we had a pretty quiet chat, but hopefully you learned a thing or two. This recording will be available, so you can reference it later. It's going to be on YouTube or on LinkedIn if you watched on LinkedIn. Apparently, we're doing that now, which is cool. If you have any questions for me, you can find me online. Gwyneth Payne-Seguenza, LinkedIn, Twitter, or X, or whatever we're calling it these days. And yeah, feel free to ask me. This is something relatively new. Playing around with it a lot, and I think it is just another like I was talking at the beginning, like a tool for your toolkit. Like if you are really well versed with the CLI, but you need to ask about like a CLI command, this is great. Like I use it a lot for that. Like quickly querying to see from the resources, like you don't remember the name of something, it's useful for that. It's not going to be perfect for absolutely everything, but it definitely does have its place, I think, in your toolkit, which is something to consider and to leverage, right? Especially if you're already using Copilot and if you're leveraging Azure as well. All right. Well, thank you everyone for hanging out, for learning a couple things with me, and I will see you in the next live stream.
Thanks, everyone, for joining. Thanks, Gwen, for another great session. Our session is a part of a series. To register for future shows, watch past episodes on demand, you can follow the link on the screen or in the chat. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we'd love to hear what you have to say. You can find that link on the screen or in the chat. Today's event code is 24378, and we'll see you at the next one.